Today's episode is in partnership with Care.com, and I'm so excited to welcome back Jill McNamara, a licensed social worker and aging expert at Care.com. It is so good to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to see you again.
It's coming at such a good time because I need a vent sesh. But last time you were here, we had a really emotional conversation. I mean, every time I talk about this, it's emotional for me. It's an ongoing struggle being part of this sandwich generation, having to take care of our kids while dealing with our parents. It makes it very hard to live in the moment, and you feel like you're stuck in the middle of two different lives. And I was nervous coming into this conversation because I know how emotional I got last time. But honestly, after all the feedback from the last podcast, I was like, this is why we're doing it, you know, like this is why we're having these conversations, because there are so many people that are in this position and do not know what to do or who to turn to. So since we last spoke, you went beyond highlighting my story and you collected data from 1,000 sandwich generation caregivers. Tell me a little bit more about the survey and the report and what Care.com is really hoping to understand by collecting all of this information.
Yeah, so this was our first of a kind survey for Care.com. As you mentioned, we surveyed 1,000 sandwich generation caregivers, which is, are those folks caring for children and aging parents. And we did it because we really wanted to put data behind this story that we know is often, it's not, told a lot, right? We know so many folks are in this sandwich generation. They're balancing caring for children, caring for parents, everything that comes with it. But there's often not a lot of recognition and there's not a lot of data behind it. And so we really wanted to be able to tell the story and share support by putting the data behind it. And what came out of it, I think none of us expected. And so I think it and I know we'll talk a little bit more about the data, but I think it really starts to tell a story and start to really bring to life what a lot of folks are going through.
It's so true. I mean, I've been using the sandwich generation term for maybe like a year now, is when I first heard about it. And I was even with a friend last night who's been dealing with a sick mom for 15 years. Wow. And I mentioned the term, the sandwich generation, and he had never even heard of it. And I think it's something that gets looked over. I think we're all like so capable and we think we can do everything. We have it all under control and we have all these resources. But when it comes to taking care of the people that you love the most, there's just so much responsibility. There's so much guilt. And like for me, I get decision fatigue. I think one thing that I found so validating was realizing that like I wasn't alone in this, and seeing actual data behind this really made me realize just how many families are carrying all this quiet weight. I took the survey. It was amazing for me to take it, just to be asked those questions and for me to have to think about them was so helpful. So I thought it would be interesting to walk through some of the findings because there were a few stats that really, really caught my attention. Okay. The first one is that 80% of people said becoming a caregiver happened suddenly, and 84% said they wish they'd asked for help sooner. I mean, I completely related to this because there wasn't one defining moment where I was given this title of caregiver. It's kind of happened slowly and it became my reality. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, this is my life now.
Yeah, you're in it.
I'm in it. So is that what you typically see? Do you find that people slowly become caregivers without even realizing it?
It's interesting. I think sometimes it is gradual, like you mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And sometimes it's really sudden.
Yeah.
So I think what we're starting to see, you mentioned, you didn't even recognize necessarily that you're a caregiver, right? Or it came on slowly. And I think that was one of the powerful pieces of this research.
Yeah.
Giving folks kind of that name, sandwich generation, recognizing, oh, I'm in it. And I think a lot of times it's due to the, caring for a parent or aging loved one piece, right? It's very clear when we're parents, right? We have kids, we're very aware we're in that role. But when it comes to, caring for an aging loved one, it can happen gradually, right? Maybe we're just a son, we're a daughter. We don't necessarily recognize managing the finances or bringing our parents meals, providing transportation to appointments as caregiving. That's just what we do as sons and daughters.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like
But
in the invisible work.
it is,
Yeah.
absolutely. But then I think alternatively, sometimes caregiving can happen so sudden when you're talking about caring for a parent, right? It could be a fall, it could be a sudden diagnosis, cognitive changes. And overnight, we could go from being sons and daughters to now coordinating care for a parent. And so I think, as you mentioned, that 80% that said, this happened suddenly. I think, again, whether it is there was an incident, people were suddenly thrust into it, but we also see a lot of people are having kids later.
Right.
And in addition to that, we see that, people are tending to live longer with chronic conditions. And so caring for somebody, it now will span years instead of months. And so again, it's very quickly can be thrust into that situation and you're just in go mode, right? And you don't necessarily recognize, wow, I've taken on all this responsibility. And, until you're in it.
Right. It's so true. I mean, things slowly evolved with my mom, but then all of a sudden, it completely overtook our lives where my siblings and I were having weekly calls to figure out what was the schedule for my mom, who was doing the groceries, who was paying the bills, who was doing the doctor's appointments, who was just going over to say hi, all of that stuff. And it becomes this little operation. And I remember telling you, I think in the last episodes, parts of me started like resenting my family or those conversations and not wanting to even spend time with them because it felt too depressing.
Yeah. Which is so normal, right? Like I want to I know we talked about that last time, but that's so important of like, that's normal to feel that way because everything you guys were doing is caregiving.
It's true.
Right? Like you just talked like everything that you just mentioned, that's caregiving. And people often don't recognize that. And that's a lot of work, physical and emotional work.
The next statistic that I think really hit me the hardest is that 87% of caregivers said that they feel invisible to people who aren't living through it. And that is definitely something I feel right now, like getting the tissues. I feel like I don't want to be a victim and I don't want to be out there just like burdening people with my story or asking for help. So I mostly just burden Timmy with it. But then it just feels like so many people in my life like have no idea what I'm going through. And it is so hard to balance that. It's also so hard to emotionally show up to something when this sadness is overcoming you. Like right now, I feel like I'm in a state of grief where I'm like still trying to figure out her care plan. Things are evolving day to day. And I'm in this middle position where I'm like grieving the life that I once had with my parents while also watching my mom decline. And I feel like I don't know where to go with it. Like, I definitely feel invisible and I don't want to be the person, though, that's complaining about it all the time. Why do you think caregiving feels like this?
I mean, I think it can feel so isolating, right? But I think what's so powerful, and we saw that last time we talked and you shared your story, how many people resonated with that and how many people felt the same way you did, felt like I'm the only one. I feel like I'm alone in this. And just the fact to say, wow, all these other people are going through it. I think that was what was so powerful when you have shared your story. And so I understand that sometimes it can feel like, I don't want to burden others with this, right? Like this is my family. It's my role to deal with this. But the reality is that it's so demanding, and that while feeling guilt of like you have to manage it on your own is so normal. And so often, we see that asking for help is really what's going to allow you to be able to show up and keep showing up. And it's hard, right? How to ask for help, who to ask for help. But I think what's so amazing is I think when people do ask or they do share their story, more often than not, people aren't like, I don't want to hear that, right?
Yeah.
Instead, they're like, wow, like either I sympathize or I empathize. Like, I'm going through that too. And I
Completely.
think that's a lot of what we've even seen, today, what we've seen, talking and from you sharing your story. And
Mhm.
so absolutely understand, what you're feeling and
Mhm.
going through. But I think even this,
Even
you
this
share,
is yeah,
this
it's
is what
true.
people want to hear, and to hear
Mhm.
I'm not alone and it's okay. Where a lot of us are going through the same thing together.
It's really so true. When someone asks me how I'm doing or about my mom, I'm like I'm fine. I'm okay. Like like you
Right.
don't want to. It's like she's not
Yeah.
good, but we're doing okay. And it makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like I'm brushing them off. It makes me feel like I'm pushing down all my feelings. And I think that is what has helped me the most in terms of care.com. Just when I had that like call with you, just the fact that you you don't feel invisible. I think getting over that hurdle can then allow you to be proactive. Like sometimes the sadness like stops me from being able to do anything,
Mhm.
and it's like it's too hard to make decisions for her or to visit her or to call her because it's like it's too sad.
Yeah.
But knowing that I'm not a monster for feeling that way or that this is normal definitely does help me. Like standing in that line, talking to all the people on the street today and hearing people's stories, I'm like, I don't want this for you, but thank God there's a sense of community here.
Mhm. Yeah, where so many people are in this boat,
Yeah,
right? And it's one of those things too. It's where do you turn, right?
right.
I think so many people feel lost or helpless or frustrated or guilty or don't want to be in this role. And again, all of it's normal, right?
Mhm.
There's no, when it comes to caring for a parent or kids, for that
Yeah,
matter too, right? Like there's, they talk about there's no handbook, right? Like
right.
all of this is new. And I think the dynamic with parents, what's so different is they've cared for you,
Mhm.
right? And it's different. You're always in a parental role with your kids, but then when it's your parents, there's so many other emotions that come up, and who do you turn to? And I think that's why, when you had quoted the 87% of people who feel invisible,
Mhm.
right? They're doing all these tasks. And it's whether it's physical tasks, whether it's emotional tasks, managing emotions of both your parent and your kids,
Mhm.
it's a lot
It's
and
a
it
lot.
takes a toll.
Mhm.
And again, that's why we're talking about these things, trying to raise awareness, because until people recognize I'm in this situation and it's okay for me to feel this way,
Mhm.
right? How are you going to ask for help?
It's
Like
so
where are you going
true.
to get support,
Mhm.
right? And it's a lot. And so I think it just starts to really bring to life for people that like it's okay to feel this way and there is some help out there, and it's
Completely.
not
And
easy.
you're not alone. And we do
Yeah.
see you, like you're not invisible.
Mhm.
99% of people said caregiving led to some form of personal growth,
Mhm.
which I've definitely seen a little bit too. Like it's definitely put things into perspective for me. I think that I'm able to really focus on what's important and what's not. However, sometimes I think the grief living in my cells makes me like a little impatient and on edge all the time. So I'm trying to balance those two things. But when you saw that number, were you surprised or was that something that you've witnessed through your work?
So I've witnessed it, but I was surprised at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
And I think because we know how hard caregiving is, right?
Mhm.
Just to say that there are some positives we've seen out of this, it doesn't, negate the fact that caregiving is challenging, right?
Yeah.
We know that. But when 99% of folks said, I've seen something positive, whether that is they said, I've gained increased empathy, maybe I
Mhm.
have more patience, or
Mhm.
we even had folks that said, I have a different perspective on life of what's
Mhm.
important to me as
Mhm.
a result of being in this caregiving role. To see so many people basically overcome what's so difficult, right?
Mhm.
Again, we're not saying this is easy, but to say that, yes, we've seen some positive growth
Mhm.
even while you're going through the trenches, I think that was really surprising
Mhm.
and really encouraging, right? At the
Mhm.
same time, to know this is so hard, but people can get through it and there are ways to help. And, most people have experienced some growth because of that. So it was good to
Definitely.
see that positivity as well.
At Starbucks, full and part-time baristas can build meaningful careers while getting industry-leading benefits, like comprehensive health coverage and up to 18 weeks of paid parental leave without missing a step in their careers. Because at Starbucks, great benefits and opportunities to grow are just the start. Learn more at starbucks.com/partners.
It's similar to how I felt and feel about losing my father, was that obviously I didn't want to have to learn any of those lessons, and I would take it back if I could and take back all the personal growth. But when you have to deal with hard things as humans, you become really resilient.
Yeah.
And I think you do gain a completely different perspective on what's important. And I think you have so much more grace, and you start to realize that you have no idea what anybody is dealing with on a daily basis. And I think that we are so quick to judge. And I think that this is just a lesson in that kind of empathy and sympathy for me, to just be like, Whitney, this may not be about you. Every person is on their own journey. One thing I also really appreciated about this report is that it doesn't just tell us like how common the experience is. It explains why so many people actually feel unseen, which brings us to what we were doing earlier today. We mentioned a little bit, because if anyone happened to walk up to us in New York this morning, they probably had one question: why are all these people standing next to a giant inflatable sandwich?
Yep.
So tell me how this whole idea came about.
Yeah. So when we did the research, right, and we talked about, we wanted the numbers behind this to really hit home and tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we did this research, but we said, like, how do we get the word out? We want to do something that's physical, that really stands out, something you can't scroll past, because we really wanted to give it the attention it deserves. And so we put up this giant inflatable sandwich in New York City. And, we're able to talk to people just about why we were doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, the stats up on the building so people could see. And I even heard people commenting walking by. They're like, oh, that's me. Oh my gosh, that's me.
Same.
I'm in those stats. And
Same.
it was, again, it did what we wanted to do, in the sense we wanted to grab people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you were like, why is there this giant inflatable sandwich? Just to start the conversation, because as we talked about, these folks feel invisible, and we wanted them to be seen.
Validation goes such a long way. And obviously care.com does provide resources and answers, but even just validation and that you're being heard can go so far. I think that while this 2-day event was obviously incredibly important in terms of raising awareness and having this conversation, when the sandwich comes down, I know there's a much larger conversation to be had and actual help that needs to be given from care.com. So what does the campaign look like beyond today, and how are you actually helping the sandwich generation?
Yeah, well, I think to your point, right, it's so important. We wanted to do something big to get attention, but I think continuing that is what's so important. Because, yes, we've raised awareness and folks are hopefully identifying that I'm in the sandwich generation, but what do you do about it?
Right.
And so, we want to continue the conversation. So I think part of that obviously is our discussion today on the podcast. We're doing the AMA in a couple of weeks.
That will be great. I've never done a Reddit AMA. I'm very excited to do that.
That'll be fun. Yep. So we'll get all the questions from folks in.
Yeah.
We've also launched a new social channel. We are the Sandwich Gen. And we're posting both light, fun content, right, just to give you a break. But then we're also posting some practical resources as well.
I think that's what we need.
We do. And it's just, again, I think to your point, like you were saying, you're like, okay, where do I turn? What do I do? And so we know families are looking for that practical help. And so we want to make sure that we can do that and help them.
That's amazing. Okay. We are the Sandwich Gen.
Yes.
I'm really, I don't know if excited is the right word, but like relieved to have this account, because I want those practical tips. I want those things on a daily basis that can help me take the load off like a little bit more, and things that I don't know to say to myself.
Yeah.
you know? For me, what's so hard right now is not knowing what the future holds.
Mm-hmm.
And it can feel so overwhelming when you start to spiral. Timmy was saying to me today, Whitney, like, you really just have to take this like 1 hour at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so impossible for me to do that. I will spiral and be like, how long am I going to be managing this? Not that I want it to end. And I feel so guilty for even saying that, but I don't know where to go when my mind spirals and I start to feel like, how am I going to survive this?
Well, and you can feel two things at once, right?
Mhm.
You can feel, I don't want this to end because obviously you love your mom and, you want to keep her around. But the reality is too, it's very difficult and it can feel overwhelming and first, sometimes maybe even burdensome, right?
Mhm.
To kind of just indefinitely, how am I going to get through this? But I think to your point, taking it hour by hour,
Yeah.
day by day. And I think when going back to what we were talking about earlier of how do you ask for help, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes too, it doesn't have to be, help with all of the caregiving, right?
Uh-huh.
Even little things can make a big difference of
Mhm.
just, can one person, take mom to an appointment or
Mhm.
go spend some time with her or call her or, help you maybe with your family so
Mhm.
you can take a quick break. It can even be little things, but
Mhm.
those little things can oftentimes give you enough of a break
Mhm.
to help you reset and say, okay, I can keep going. I can do another hour. I can do another day.
It's so true. Right. The little things, like, they really start to add
Yeah.
up. What were some of the other stats that you felt like actually shocked by?
I think the age of
Yeah.
the, sandwich generation caregiver. So I think so many folks think that, sandwich generation, you're in your 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
But what we found in this survey, the average age was actually 34.
I could not believe that.
That surprised me.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's a few reasons for that. I think, one, again, people aren't self-identifying, right? So
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
folks are in really the thick of caregiving by the time they recognize it as caregiving, and maybe that comes at a later age. But
Mhm.
then, also some of the things we talked about earlier of like the folks are having, kids later and people are living longer. And so
Right.
there's a lot of factors that go into when somebody becomes that caregiver, that sandwich generation caregiver.
Mhm.
And I think what's so challenging, and you're talking about this, right? It's not just those physical tasks. You're managing the emotions of multiple generations.
That's what's the hardest part. I think for me, sometimes, like, the sadness and the emotions stop me and make the tasks so much harder to do.
Mhm. And I think what a misconception we often see is folks think that, oh, it's just, people are too busy, right? You talk about tasks, there's just too many things on the calendar.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's not it at
It's
all.
not.
It's not a matter of having more hours in the day. It goes so much deeper than that. Because when you're managing those emotions for multiple generations, managing that for yourself, it's, not about just having help with tasks, but
Mhm.
how do we ease those decision making,
Mhm.
that you have to do over and over, the emotions that come with it. I mean,
Mhm.
you even talked about, decision fatigue. That is so real. You're
Yeah.
making decisions for your mom, for your child, for your family.
Mhm.
These are all people you love, and
Mhm.
you're doing it day in and day out, often many times again, it's invisible.
Mhm.
And so we really need systems in place, right? Whether with family, whether through employers, whether through healthcare that just not only support with those tasks, but support with the emotional piece as
Completely.
well.
Completely.
That's what we see. Logistics, yep, seem concrete,
Uh-huh.
but those impact the emotions and the toll that that takes on families.
It's so true. I think, yeah, that's what I have been really feeling. I feel so sad about what's going on that when I have to face it, I almost just want to, like, push it
Yeah.
down, and
Yeah.
it makes me not almost be able to enjoy, like, all the good parts of my life. And I think that's what I'm struggling with. Like, the physical taking care of her is, for me, not as hard as the emotional caregiving, and that's what I'm trying to come to terms with right now, and also tell myself that it is okay to enjoy the happy, good parts of my life. It's also really hard when you think about with taking care of parents, what they would want versus what is maybe best for your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you deal with that all the time. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's hard.
It's so
right.
hard.
And it's again that's an emotional struggle, right? Of okay, I think my loved one would want this. Here's what I'm able to give.
Mm-hmm.
But
Like they've rejected care for so long. They don't
Mhm.
want it. They don't think they need it. You know, they absolutely need it. And then it becomes this battle. And then you feel, well, like, am I doing the right thing? They don't really want this. They're so unhappy. They don't want a stranger in their house. And then when it comes down to it, you're like, obviously the safety is number one. And if they're not safe in their home on their own, they need the person, whether or not they want them there. But it's just so hard to be making these decisions for a full grown adult that maybe had an idea of how they wanted to live their life, and this isn't it. And then now I feel responsible for making all these decisions.
Yeah, it's a hard role, right?
Yeah.
Again, you're used to making those decisions for your child. It's a different role to start making those decisions for a parent.
Right.
But I think it goes back to you can only do so much.
Yeah.
And if the reality is, even if your mom wants something that you feel like you just can't give her, whether it's for safety reasons, whether it's just for bandwidth reasons, you physically can't, aren't able, if that's okay, right? Because at the end of the day, you just showing up for her in whatever capacity you can, that's going to be what's best for her. And, you may not be able to do everything that she wishes, but if you tried, you might not be able to be there for her and be present and enjoy some of those good moments with her. And so it's very easy to put that pressure on ourselves of we have to do everything or we have to do it this way. And the reality is we just can't.
We just can't.
And that's okay.
And I think that's what I have to accept. I think that's what all of us in the sandwich generation have to accept, is that we are doing the best that we can, and we have to give ourselves grace.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So a lot of people think asking for help is like an all or nothing situation. Can you talk about how even just a few hours of support each week can make a meaningful difference?
Absolutely. And I think this is why it goes back to the importance of we were talking about of self-identifying as a caregiver.
Yeah.
Because until you recognize you're in that role, you're not able to ask for help. So I think recognizing, one, it's okay to ask for help because again, that really allows us to keep showing up. And then what are the things you could use help with? We often hear people say, let me know if you need anything, right? I'm here for you. And very well intentioned, but hard to act on it if it's not concrete. And I think if we're, asking for help, the same thing goes as if you're offering help. What are those specific tasks you could use help with?
Yeah.
And again, it can be something, just taking someone to a doctor's appointment, going and spending time. It doesn't have to be, hey, can you, take mom for the next week? I mean, if you're able to, great. Get that respite when you can.
Yeah.
But even just a little bit of a break can really help recharge.
Yeah.
And so it's, figuring out who are those people on your care team, right? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it a paid caregiver? And what are those things that they can do to just give you some of that space, some of that break, so you can then keep showing up?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I try to look at my schedule for the week and think about, the things that I have to do for my mom, and then when I'm going to go see her, and kind of schedule them in. So then it's not this kind of like in the back of my head, when am I going to get to do this? Oh, I have to do this. I think sometimes when I carve it out and put the things in my schedule, then I'm able to really physically see like how much time it's taking and how much I have to do, and then be able to ask for the help where I need it. But it takes a lot of foresight.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of planning. For someone who feels so overwhelmed and doesn't really know where to begin, where do you recommend that they start?
I mean, I think whether you're in it now or whether it's somebody listening who's not yet in the sandwich generation, I think it starts with a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's not just one, right?
Yeah.
It's anybody who's in this knows it's not just one conversation. I wish it was that easy. It's starting to talk to loved ones about what do they want.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more we start to know what their wishes are, the more we can plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? We may not always be able to follow through on those plans.
Mhm.
Things change, but
Mhm.
we can start to have a plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
And for many folks, this is new.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you turn to a professional for support, right? I know you talked about you would talk to a senior care advisor.
Yes.
And having somebody who knows the space so they can either help you come up with a plan, or if your plan isn't feasible anymore,
Mm-hmm.
what's the backup plan?
Mhm.
But these things are hard to talk about, right? We don't like to think about as we age and as we start to lose independence, like what do we want?
Mm-hmm.
But the more we talk about it and the more we plan, the more choice folks have, the more prepared that will be.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that everything's going to go smooth and it's going to be easy.
Of course.
But I think that's a place for people to start.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they can do that whether they're not yet in a caregiving role for a parent, whether they are. And for some folks, they may not be in a situation where they can have that conversation with a
Mhm.
parent.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Yeah. I've already told Sonny. I said, I mean, he's 9 years old, but I've said to him, whatever you need to do with me so that you can go enjoy your life, like
Oh.
just go do. Like, it's so hard.
Yeah.
I think for my mom, like I've talked about, it's also specifically Alzheimer's that we're dealing with that I know probably so many of the clients on care.com deal with. I'm like losing my mom before I've actually lost her.
Yeah.
We're having a hard time right now. We're like, trying to figure out her care situation and what's best for her. She was like very not with it, but originally when we had care for her, she was very, very resistant to it and was calling us and texting us constantly, like, get this person out of my house. How could you do this to me?
That's so hard.
A lot of guilt, a lot of rage texts. And that was really hard. And now it's completely stopped. And it feels almost like harder in a way because it feels like she's just not there at all anymore. I'm honestly in a pretty bad way with it at the moment. I'm trying to figure out if she should move in with me, if I can handle that. I'm in like the middle of it right now, and I've been gone. I've been traveling for a few weeks and I've had a lot of guilt about being gone. And I'm eager to get home and like see what's going on and get a handle on things because I think part of my helplessness feeling right now is because I'm not there, like knowing what's going on every day. But I then think about if she were to come live with me, like, could I handle that?
Right.
Really, could I handle that? And I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. Cause she can't be on her own.
I'm so sorry to hear that. That's so much to go through, right?
Yeah.
And just I think that's what's so hard too about Alzheimer's is watching, somebody lose their independence,
Completely.
right? Whether it's physical, cognitive, and this is your mother, somebody you love who's taking care of you.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you are focusing on this topic, right? It clearly means so much to you. And you clearly care about her and love her so much, right? So I think that's first and foremost.
Yeah.
Is she is so lucky to have you and your love and support. And there's no right answers, right? There's, multiple things you could do. And I'm sure, you're already thinking through them.
Yeah.
Right. And you will figure out what you want to do next.
Right.
And honestly, whatever decision you land on, it doesn't have to be permanent.
That's what I keep telling myself too, is that even if we do try certain things, like nothing has to be permanent. Nothing has to be forever, and things can evolve. I have to constantly remind myself that because like I said before, I will spiral and then I'll be like, okay, so my mom is 74 years old. Like she's very young.
Yeah.
And her mom lived with this. Her mom didn't have Alzheimer's, but she had dementia and ended up living well into her 90s.
Wow. Okay.
Which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But also scary. Like, I have to be real,
Yes.
you know? Like, a lot of the moral of this conversation is really staying in this moment and knowing that nothing has to be permanent or forever, and that we can try different things and see what works and sticks for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to do, what's best for both of you.
Right.
Because if you only do what's best for your mom and you neglect yourself, you're not going to be able to show up for your mom.
No, I know.
And
that's what I worry. I'm like, well, my marriage fell apart. Will this be too hard for Sunny to watch? There's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
And like I said, and then when it becomes too much, then I just want to push it away and like not deal with it at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people feel
That's
the same
very
way.
normal. Yes, very normal. Well, and also too, it's hard because oftentimes we feel like we don't know the answers. We don't have the answers. So
Right.
not only is it a lot to deal with, but it's not like we're, just avoiding it because, we don't like the options. Like oftentimes we don't know the options.
Right.
And so
oftentimes it feels like all the options are not great.
yes. And it absolutely can feel like that there's all just less
They're
than
all
ideal.
just bad
Yes.
options.
Yeah.
Like that's what sometimes it feels to me.
Yeah.
And I think that I feel a release just even saying that out loud.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. It's so normal, right? Like that is so common to feel like that is the case. There's only bad options.
Right.
But I think again, at the end of the day, like, everything else aside, as I mentioned, like your mom is so lucky to have you, right? She has somebody who loves her, who's advocating for her, who wants her best interest. And, you can only do so much. You're doing the best that you can here. And that means more than you probably know, right? In the sense of, I know we often feel like we're never doing enough.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm doing the best I can.
But you are doing so much for her, and just showing up for her is not easy, but means an incredible amount.
Yeah. Thank you. I need to hear that. Yeah. This has been really cathartic. So I'm just like so grateful for you guys, because obviously, as hard as this is for me to talk about, like I have no other place to talk about it. And like this is exactly what's needed. It doesn't get spoken about enough, and nobody really wants to talk about. And I surely don't want to always be like this Debbie Downer person, but it really, like, I'm being truthful, it's helped me so much. It really has. Like, this is a cathartic release. It is, I promise.
Well, thank you for sharing, right? Because it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's to your point, we feel alone. And you even said, you're like, I feel like a Debbie Downer. And you're not, right? This is something so many people are in this situation feeling this way, feeling like they're alone. And that, what do they do about it? And maybe they feel like they don't want to burden others with it, but you can't just sit with it all yourself.
Yeah.
It's, it's going to eat you up. And I just so appreciate you opening up and sharing, because as we saw last time, so many people resonated.
So many people.
And that's what people needed. They needed to hear, I'm not alone. Other people are going through this. Other people get it. I think you're very brave for sharing this, because it's not something that's often talked about.
No, and it's hard because it's like you want to have the answers for people too. Like I want to come away with tips and tricks and all the education and what they should be doing next. Everybody's situation is so different. There's no prescription. There's no one size fits all. But I think just for everybody, whether they're in it or not, to know that this exists is like the lesson here. For listeners who maybe aren't in this season of their life yet, what are a few simple things that they can do now, like before that there's a crisis, to better prepare themselves for their families?
Having conversations, not only about what does somebody want for care as they age, but starting to get even, medical wishes in order. What are people's preferences? Is this something they've thought about? Have like mom and dad, have you thought about what you want as you age?
Right.
I think because we know these conversations are multiple, they take time.
Yeah.
I think what folks can do is start to open that door, because everyone's different. Some folks, might be very willing to engage in a conversation and have thought about it. Other people may not have thought about it or don't want to talk about it and don't want to think about it. So I think for folks who may not be in this yet, it's starting to have those conversations to start to plan, start to prepare as much as you can, and knowing that sometimes all your plans are going to fall apart.
Completely. And sometimes you cannot execute everything that they may want. And that's the hard part. But that's also telling yourself that that's okay too.
Absolutely. You're already such an advocate for this. That's what we need. It's gaining that attention to it.
Well, thank you. I've definitely thought about like buying like a small house and finding like 3 other great ladies and moving my mom in with ladies and like creating a whole program for them. And like, I've like thought about all these things and I'm like, is that like, can I do that? Can I handle that?
Oh, I love it.
Anyways, honestly, thank you so much for being here. This has been so cathartic and amazing for me, and I'm sure for so many others out there listening. This is not a fun or easy subject to talk about, but it's so important to remember that we don't have to navigate this alone. I'm so grateful for care.com. I can't even tell you. If today's conversation resonated with you, I really encourage you to check out care.com's full 2026 Sandwich Generation Report and all of the resources they've created for caregivers at care.com/sandwich. You can also follow at We Are the Sandwich Gen for ongoing support, conversations, and helpful resources. And if you're looking for care for your own family, whether that's childcare, senior care, or anything in between, you can use code Whitney35 for 35% off a care.com membership. Thank you all so much for listening.
And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.